Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a trip into the world of game development, specifically how games handle something we often take for granted, saving your progress.
And not just saving games, but also how those awesome level editors work that let you build and share your creations.
Exactly. And to guide us through this digital jungle, we've got some fascinating insights from a research paper all about using Unity and Google Firebase. Should be interesting.
It really is. People might not realize that even simple features, like saving a game or sharing a level, they involve a surprising amount of complexity behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just think back to the days of having to write down those crazy long passwords to save your game. And if you messed up one digit,
Game over, man. Back to square one.
exactly. And talk about limited storage. Those passwords had to hold your entire progress.
Yeah, those were the days when every single byte of data was precious.
But thankfully, things have evolved. Now we've got memory cards, hard drives, and of course, the cloud.
The cloud really was a game changer, wasn't it? Not just in terms of storage space, which, don't get me wrong, was huge, but also in where that data lived. Instead of sitting on your device, it was stored securely online.
So what drove that shift? Was it just about having more space to store our growing game libraries?
Well, that was definitely a factor, especially with the rise of mobile gaming. Players wanted to start a game on their phone and pick up right where they left off on their tablet, and that meant their progress had to be accessible anywhere. But there's another really important factor: cheating.
Oh, right. People trying to hack the system for unlimited lives or coins.
Exactly. And I think a really good example of that is the Temple Run hack. That was a big wake-up call for the industry.
Because it showed how vulnerable locally stored game data could be.
Exactly. Players were figuring out how to manipulate save files to give themselves unlimited in-game currency, and that was a massive problem for developers.
I bet. I mean, that kind of cheating must cost them a fortune.
It did. And it really highlighted the need for a more secure way to handle game data. Storing it on a remote server became essential, not just to prevent cheating, but also to protect revenue streams, particularly with in-app purchases becoming so prevalent.
So it was kind of a win-win situation. Players got the convenience of cloud saves, and developers got a more secure way to protect their games and their bottom line.
It's exactly. Increased storage, cross-platform play, and enhanced security. All of these came together to really shape the gaming landscape we know and love today.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on the evolution of saving our gaming progress, let's shift gears a bit and talk about building the games themselves. And this is where our research paper delves into the wonderful world of Unity3D. So Unity3D, it's like if game development were a giant Lego set, Unity would be the box that has all the coolest pieces, right?
Yeah, I like that analogy. It gives you all these amazing tools to create almost any kind of game you can imagine.
And what's really cool is this paper dives into a really creative side of game dev,
Yeah.
building a level editor right inside Unity.
Yeah, it's a fascinating aspect. It's like instead of just playing the game, you're crafting the worlds that other players will experience.
Whoa, that's meta. Building a game within a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though this paper focuses on a simplified version, it still highlights the challenges of designing a system like that. You're essentially creating a set of tools for someone else to express their creativity.
And with that comes a whole new layer of complexity, right? Especially when you think about data storage. Like, how do you actually save and load all those platforms and enemies and what have you?
Right, and remember those data structuring methods we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
PlayerPrefs, XML, JSON. Picking the right one is super important for a level editor.
Okay, yeah. So remind me again, what are the key differences there? Why would one be better than the other for building levels?
So think of PlayerPrefs like using sticky notes for data. Good for small things like settings, but not a whole level. XML and JSON are more like organized file folders.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going with this. You need a system for organizing all those elements, right? Like this platform goes here, this enemy spawns there.
Exactly. You need to store the type of each object, its position, maybe even special properties or behaviors. XML and JSON give you that organizational power.
So why did they go with JSON specifically for their level editor? What's so special about it?
Well, JSON hits a sweet spot between being easy to read and really efficient. Developers can understand it without wanting to pull their hair out. Plus, it's lightweight, which is super important for games, especially on mobile.
Ah, right, because nobody likes a laggy game. The faster it loads, the better.
For sure. But here's where the paper gets even cooler. They go beyond just JSON as a data format. They introduce the concept of an interface for managing all the different objects in your level.
Okay, gotta be honest. Whenever I hear interface, I get flashbacks to my TV remote with way too many buttons. What's it mean in the context of level editing?
Haha. No worries, it's not as intimidating as it sounds. Think of an interface like a universal translator for your game objects. It's basically a set of rules that defines how each object, whether it's a wall, a platform, an enemy, whatever, should store and load its data.
So instead of having unique command for every single object, the game just refers to the interface to know what to do with that data. Genius.
Exactly, like giving each object its own little instruction manual. And this approach is great for flexibility because even if you add new objects later on, as long as they follow the interface, the system knows exactly how to handle them.
That's some clever future-proofing right there.
Yeah.
So we've got our levels all nicely structured, but how do we actually get them out into the world? This is where Google Firebase comes in, yeah.
You got it. Firebase is like this awesome back-end service
Yeah.
that acts as the bridge between your game and the online world, letting players share and download all those amazing levels they create.
Okay, so I get that Firebase is the where of all this sharing, but how does our neatly organized level data actually make its way through this bridge?
Great question. And that's where this whole data structuring thing becomes super important. We're talking about sending data over the internet, and, well, the internet has its limits. We need to be smart about how we package things.
So it's not just about organizing data for the game itself, but also optimizing it for online travel.
Got it. So how do they handle that in the research paper? What's their trick? Okay, lay it on me. What's the secret to making this level sharing magic happen?
Well, it's all about how they structure the data for sending it over the internet. They use a strategy called creating flat JSON structures. Imagine, instead of neatly packing a box with smaller boxes inside, you lay everything out flat.
Ah, I see, like those frustrating clamshell packages. Everything's right there, no digging through layers.
Exactly. It's simpler and more efficient for sending data quickly, especially over the internet.
Makes sense, but wouldn't that make the data harder to actually use on Firebase?
It's a trade-off, but Firebase is designed to work well with flatter structures. It's faster for finding and retrieving specific pieces of information that way. Okay, so we've sent our levels off into the digital ether, but this whole data transfer thing, it's not free, right? Like, we're not sending smoke signals here.
You're hitting on a crucial point. All that data transfer costs money, and those costs can stack up fast, especially for a popular game with tons of shared levels.
And this is where things get extra tricky with free-to-play games, right? Developers can't just rely on upfront purchases to cover those costs.
Exactly. When your income depends on things like in-app purchases or ads, every little bit of data you send back and forth eats into your potential profit.
Wow, so even letting players share levels has these hidden financial implications. It really shows how much game developers have to balance behind the scenes.
Absolutely, and this is a big takeaway for the research paper. You want players to be creative and share their levels, but unlimited sharing in a free-to-play game. That's a recipe for financial disaster.
So how do developers walk this tightrope? What are their options?
It takes some creativity. One approach is limiting how many levels players can download free each day, maybe with an option to pay for unlimited downloads.
Ooh, like a try before you buy for levels. I like that idea.
Right? Gives players a taste of the sharing features while letting developers manage those data costs. Another option is tying level downloads to in-game rewards or even ads.
Smart. Players are encouraged to engage with the system, and the developers get some income to offset those data costs. It's amazing how these design decisions, which might seem small, actually have a huge impact on a game's success.
It's a constant balancing act, and the best approach really depends on the specific game and the developer's vision. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
So true. Wow, what a journey this has been. From the history of saving our games to the intricacies of level editors and the economics of data transfer, it's mind-blowing. What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will walk away with today?
I hope they come away with a deeper appreciation for how much goes on behind the scenes of the games they love. Features that seem simple on the surface often involve this amazing mix of technology, design choices, even financial considerations. It's pretty remarkable.
Couldn't agree more. It's a real testament to the skill and creativity of the people who make these awesome games. Next time you download a new level, take a second to appreciate everything that went into making that happen. Who knows, maybe it'll even inspire you to dive into the world of game development. The possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
And on that note, until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and as always, keep diving deep.